What if you could sit down once a week with a colleague who's a flat-out warrior? This colleague wasn't a stud in dental school. He struggled. He returned to practice in his hometown, an area once labeled by USA Today as the second worst place to live economically in the United States. And this very same colleague went on to establish an historically successful general practice known worldwide. What if you knew someone that wanted to take you by the hand and show you everything you need to know, from treatment planning to leadership, to maximizing your journey in dentistry, or just life? You ready to be inspired? Welcome to the Lionhearted. Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Rasner here, and welcome back to the Lionhearted Dental Podcast. I just want to follow up last week's podcast, which was called That Confidence Thing. I want to follow that up with one more piece of advice that I didn't bring to you. You've heard me say in the past that you should surround yourself with a small circle of professionals that you need in this career. And I told you to get an accountant that is familiar with dental practices. And I don't mean that they have one or two. There are accountants in most communities that, or certainly in your state, that focus on dental practices. And that should be the same for a financial advisor. And then number three, that's a different person, a person that Google financial advisors for dentists. There's gigantic groups. There's one in Texas. I can't think of the name right now. You need them. Look, man, this is going to go real quick, your career. And you don't want to waste 20 years of it with a sloppy accountant or sloppy investor that didn't know the ins and outs of the dental profession. And then I told you to get a dental-focused attorney. I retained one for 25 years at $2,000 a year, whether I used them or not. And that was for anything I didn't know the answer to, from how I wanted to market and advertise in my state, was that legal? On what should I do about a patient that wants their records that owes me money, or about a staff member that's disgruntled, or whatever, or worse. But the one thing I didn't tell you about is that I have said is you also should get a life coach. Now, you're not going to use the life coach for your whole career. What you and I chose to do is incredibly demanding. And your significant other can only help you to so far. At the end of the day, it's you and I in those mouths. It's you and I in a new patient treatment room recommending treatment for a patient often you just met. And in today's world of dentistry, if you do a comprehensive exam, that investment can be significant. So it's stressful is my point. And you should, in my opinion at times, have access to somebody that you can just bounce things off. And I don't really know the difference between a life coach and a psychologist. I don't even know if I care. I come on this podcast with you every week and I tell you the truth. Maybe I tell you things I shouldn't tell you. But I had life coaches, not my whole career, but many intervals. And that's what I Googled, or that's what I sought out in the community when I asked other people I trusted. And I had somebody I spent an hour with every week or every other week, bouncing things off from family things sometimes to absolutely professional things that bothered me. And I said that to you this week because I talked about a very delicate thing that we all know about that can be very easily shaken and has a direct impact on what you and I do, and that's confidence. So if there's no one else in your world, or books don't help, or YouTube videos don't help, I can't imagine you not benefiting from spending some time with a life coach. Okay? That's that. This is what I want to talk about this week. And by the way, thank you for everybody that continues to download this podcast. I guess I'm never going to be Tony Robbins or one of those guys, but plenty of you from around the globe seem to be faithful to what I have to say each week. And that's enough for me. And I am positive at some point in the very near future, 2023, I hope, I'll meet many of you face to face. And our journey together to maximize our potential, your potential really, will continue. I want to talk this week about the thing that you and I call recall. The recall aspect of your practice. So let's talk about it for a minute. There is not a dental practice I know about, including Steve Rasner's, that magically patients that were great patients too, that are in your hygiene schedule, that disappear. You don't even know who they are. If you're just starting practice, you'll know who they are for about a year, maybe. It's really hard to remember the progress and the how often a family of even 500 patients comes in to see you, let alone the number that you'll have in 5 or 10 years. It's unbelievable. And I can't overemphasize the importance of you investing time to create systems to keep that part of your practice rock solid. The recall, the hygiene program. I don't care if you have one hygienist or 5 like I do. It is the heartbeat of your practice for a myriad of reasons. Number one, it is the best way for your work to look good down the road. It's the best thing for your patients, in other words. There's no doubt in my mind that one of the conclusions I've drawn from 42 years of being in the profession that you're in is that the guys that are the biggest names in dentistry, that we all know who they were. And I'm outside of Philadelphia. So in the Philadelphia area, you had the name Amsterdam and Weisgold and all these Philadelphia legends. Their patients didn't have inflammation around their restorations because they pushed the importance of it from the beginning. It was an ingrained part of the philosophy of that practice. It wasn't, I got to go to the dentist twice a year because that's what's been written in stone. No, it was more than that. And it's been more than that in my practice for 20 years. It is very clear to a new patient that comes to me. And it's very clear because I say it. It's easy to say when you meet a new patient that when you're introducing your philosophy, and you've heard me talk that you should do that. You should be able to look at a new patient before you even start examining them and say, let me explain to you a little bit about the practice you've chosen to try, to visit us, and see about us, because we're not all the same. And I'll go over a number of things about being a comprehensive dentist. And I'm very careful, by the way, when I say those things to not make it sound like it's my way or the highway, and there's ways to do that. And they're true. Like I tell a patient, listen, one of the things about this practice is that I feel it's my legacy. It's me. It's my reputation. And if you come to me, it's my responsibility to give you the options and the recommendations to have the highest level of health possible. And at least I need to inform you to give you those choices. And so, but this isn't a practice that I change every silver filling that you may still have from 30 years ago because it's silver. And I go into, and it's just fluid for me. And if it's not fluid for you, then you should work on those things or write to me how you could work on them. because it's an important thing. But one of the things I hear myself say over and over again, particularly if a patient needs something beyond a normal cleaning, which is 50% of them, is that not only do you need this deep cleaning thing we call it, do you understand that it's probably more than likely going to be done much more than just once in your career, and that I'm going to push you on purpose, even though it's not covered by your insurance. That's how I talk. To do what you need to do to have a healthy periodontium, or I'll say gums, or oral health. Because you should want me to do that, because it is the basis of everything else that I would do for you. If I veneered your front teeth and didn't care about your soft tissue health, if I crowned your teeth, if I opened your bite, if I restored your function, but I kind of ignored, because you don't really get it, the importance of healthy soft tissue, then I have failed you miserably. Okay, so I said that to you guys right now because it's fundamental in a good practice. It's not something you have to explain it, but it's not something you should have to sell. It's like saying, this is what you have to do to not get colds a lot, or get a temperature, or get sick. I know that's a little off the track, but that's how fundamental soft tissue health is to everything else we do. So the problem with people going out the back door, as some dentists call it, meaning you had them as a patient and now you don't know where they're at. And that absolutely happens to me. Some of it is from the very fact that you don't pay enough attention to this part of your practice. Look, your hygiene department is not your most profitable center of your practice, but it is the most predictable, profitable center because it doesn't require redos. There's no shade that could be off. There's no extra procedure generally that you need to do for free that it happens in all your other work. An implant analog changes. Something goes wrong at the lab. It doesn't seat. The shade's off. You have an open contact on a direct composite filling. I could go on and on and on. You couldn't find the canal in the endo. Not in hygiene. That doesn't happen. It actually does happen with one patient of mine, by the way, out of whatever thousands I have. On occasion, she's called back and said, which is shocking, that she wanted to have her teeth cleaned again. Trust me, that's an outlier. That's an aberration in my world, and I know yours too. So here's the thing, and I'm just going to say it. So you have a department, correct? You have a department in your office that confirms hygiene. And you probably have one of those systems, like I have, called Solution Reach. And this is not an assault on Solution Reach, because I haven't spent enough time to even know how that works. It sounded like a wonderful, and I think it is, I think it's a help, adjunct to helping you confirm patients. I get it. Here's the problem with hygiene. Most of the profession, most of your colleagues don't take that visit seriously enough, as opposed to what I just said a few minutes ago. And that feeling has overflown over to the patient community. So patients don't think a second of bouncing off of canceling their hygiene appointment for whatever reasons they want to do that. It's not a big thing to them. It's certainly not like getting your heart monitored before you have an operation at the cardiologist so you're cleared to have the operation. Nobody looks at it that way, right? So here's the thing. Since COVID, we've all have these packed hygiene schedules, right? I do. And yet, every week, there are times when I go, this is called vigilance. Maybe I'm going to the break room to get a soda or a water, and I walk past hygiene and neither one of them are working on patients. I noticed that. And I'll say, what happened? And they'll have a break that couldn't get filled. So here's the problem. Here's your answer. Your front desk teams are not going to be Steve Rasner fans when I say this. You have to confirm patients 2 days ahead, and it solves a number of issues. I'll say it again. If it's Monday, you should be confirming Tuesday and Wednesday. On Tuesday, you should be doing Thursday and Monday, assuming you're off on Friday. Why? Why not just let solution reach? Because they don't take it seriously enough, that's why. And it's not a reliable barometer. Not in my world, it's not. Okay? So you may be saying right now, or your front desk team will be saying, well, wait a minute, we're going to start over-confirming them, and these people will get mad at us. And that might happen with some, but if you take notes on those patients and don't, like, there's some patients that obviously do not need to be over-confirmed. They don't need to be confirmed 2 days ahead of time. But the majority do. And here's what happens. When you don't do that, because of what I've said earlier in this podcast, when you don't confirm ahead of time, this schedule that looked great has openings. And then you can't fix it. Then you're desperate. So here's what happens when you learn to confirm 2 days ahead. You get fall off. And you have time for lots of things. I have trouble finding spots for new patients. Because if you look at the hygiene schedules, they all look maxed. Well, when you call ahead, you are going to get fall off. When you go to confirm the appointment, you're going to get people that are going to cancel. And that's the perfect opportunity to do something called recall. What's recall? Recall is bringing a patient back into your practice that's been gone for 6 months and isn't on the schedule. So for 40 years, I've had various members of my team do recall for us for financial reward. Yeah, I said it. Because I've tried everything else. I tried mandating. In other words, this is part of your job. You have to do 5 recalls a week. I did that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's no accountability. There's nothing that happens to them if they don't do the recall. You're not going to fire them. You can't. I've tried everything. The only thing I found that works, and it doesn't even work with everyone, it only works with those people that really could use an extra $100 a week, is, now you want to write to me if you want to try this, but I give $20 a recall, but they don't get anything until they get the 10th recall. So you don't get hand in 3 and get $60, or 7 and get 140. Nope. You'll get them, but they have to reach 10. And then you get, by the way, I've done this so long, there was a time we paid $10. Do I think $20 is worth a recall? Yeah, it's probably worth more. These are patients that have fallen off out of your care. You didn't even know they weren't in your care anymore. You forgot. That's going to happen. Not in the beginning, you can remember everybody for the first year, but you won't. And so, yes, it's an incredibly valuable patient, and sometimes they're off for a year or 2 years. And this is how you do it, by the way. When you do recall, don't go back 5 years. Go back immediately to the patients more than 6 months. And then the patients every 6 months of a period of time is the closest to the present time is what you should be looking at. So don't, in your mind, you may be thinking, well, I'll go back 3 or 4 years. Now, the longer you go back, the harder it is. And this is a hard job to do. So then, again, this is why the front desk will not be writing me love letters this week that are watching this. Because, yeah, guys, that's part of running this type of business we're doing. It is that important that you have a solid, rock solid hygiene schedule and recall. Now, when you call, the reason it's a hard job is because you get your feelings hurt. You're going to call people that left you. You just don't know it. Or you'll get people that won't want to tell you that they left you yet. And they might even make an appointment. You'll learn to master that because it's really hard for most human beings to just tell you, oh, I don't go to you anymore. I don't like you, or whatever reason. They may tell you that their husband got new insurance, if that's the kind of thing you have. Yeah, that may happen as well. But you have to have some system in place, because if you don't, you're going to spend your whole career. Because what happens, guys, when you have a break in the appointment in hygiene? First of all, it's bad morale for the hygienist, who aren't making any money if they're paid on production, who should be involved, by the way, in the process. It's bad morale in general to have downtime. And then it's toxic to the front desk, who now has a new job on this Monday that didn't think they had, to find patients to fill in for the breaks you have. And I was so strict about it for so many years that I wouldn't even allow a message on a tape to count as a confirmation. I wouldn't allow to tell the 12-year-old that picked up the phone that said he'll tell his dad or mom. That was not a confirmation. I actually had rules of what was a confirmation, wasn't. You know what? You may look at me like, oh my God, this guy's a freak. Me. I didn't have a lot of breaks in my career. I didn't. And I've taken my foot off the pedal a little bit in the last year, and I don't like it. I don't like chaos. I don't like things to be frenetic. So when I walk into my office on a Monday morning, I really do not like hearing the attempt to fix broken hygienes that could have been prevented. And I've told you this many, many times. I was furious last week. Hey, look, if somebody gets COVID and breaks, if somebody has a legitimate reason, legit, I get it. But most of the time, and I said most of the time, it's not. It's a lack of responsibility by the patient who just doesn't care that they're blowing off an hour of somebody in your office's time. It's wrong. And if it's the opening of an appointment that broke, it's because you didn't follow the protocol, which is never put a patient at 8 o'clock that's ever broken any appointment ever. And so in my office this Monday, and I know this happens to you, I had a hygienist. I could see she was walking around, not doing anything. I don't want to start my week like that. Neither do you. And sure enough, the patient they put in was a new patient who had not confirmed which is important in my office, the fact that we don't take insurance. They can come to us out of network. Most insurances can, and your patient will get paid less by their insurance. But some insurances don't even allow that, and that was his patient. And somebody dropped the ball. You know what the answer I heard? The answer I heard is, Dr. Rasner, I addressed it. I want you to hear what I'm saying to you. 42 years into this, I was not happy with the fact that I had an 8 o'clock break on my hygiene. It was no skin off my back. And I explained to my front desk, listen, it's not about me making less. It's about I don't like my hygienist starting her week doing nothing if it was preventable. And it was, so the answer I was given is they couldn't reach the insurance company the prior Thursday. That's an unacceptable answer in my office. That's an unacceptable answer in your office. I'm not trying to be a you-know-what. This is reasonable stuff. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do all these things. Cross these T's, dot these I's. New patients coming in. You're out of network like I am. Does their insurance allow them to go to you? That's your job. I do not want to hear. Do you ever have somebody tell you they couldn't find a chart in your office? You're probably chartless. So the Lionhearted King, a podcast, me, It's not chartless yet. I'm not. So I have charts. And those of you that have charts will hear, they looked everywhere. They can't find a chart. You know what I say when it happens? You haven't looked hard enough. I need to see this chart on my desk in the next 30 minutes. That's the end of the story. And maybe you think that's a hardcore way to operate. It's an effective way if you want things done. Sometimes everybody has to do their jobs at a higher level. You do, doctor. You don't get to get away with stuff. When you leave an open contact, you say to the patient, well, look, I had a little bit of an off day. See you at the next hygiene. We'll figure it out. No, you don't say that. Hell, I had a patient recently come in. We make them sign off on anything aesthetic, whether it's a denture, an overdenture, a crown, a case, not a crown, but a crown and bridge case. And I had somebody come in and they don't like the color of their denture teeth, even though they signed the form and said it was fine. They said, oh my God, I mean, it's hard. Yes, it's hard even when you do everything right. So I'm telling you about this because my feeling for many of you is doctors and owners and managers is you haven't spent enough time with systems on recall. And one way to be more prepared is to prepare 2 days in advance. And your front desk isn't going to love that. But once they do it, they only have to work hard for the first week because that's the first time you're calling ahead. Once you call ahead, you've called ahead. And it's much better to know that you have a break on Wednesday if you know that on Monday than to find out Wednesday morning, unless you don't agree and you don't think that hygiene is a very important part to have, to be filled. And all of us know that a lot of the work that you end up treating comes from hygiene. So this is what I wanted to bring out to you this week. I'm going to leave you with this. Do you have a system for recall in your office? Again, I repeat, you can write to me. I'll literally give you the blog on what I've done for years. I have 18 employees. I have 3, sometimes 4, that are interested in financial remuneration. I have 3 or 4 that are interested in that program. Not everybody's going to be, but you need to have somebody in your office doing that. So you better have some kind of system in your practice for recall. Because if you don't, you're going to spend a career trying to fix it. You're going to wonder what happened. And sometimes the patients just forgot. They got busy with life and it's nothing more than that. And you have not captured that potential because they simply forgot. And sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes you get your feelings hurt because they left you and they didn't even tell you. It is what it is. The second thing is start confirming 2 days ahead of time to give your time in your office to fix the openings. And thirdly, doctor, understand the importance of emphasizing that good oral health of everything you do begins with a regular maintenance program. Whatever that is. Is it 3 months? Is it 4 months? Do not be afraid to say the truth because 5 years from now, when you look at your recall patients that did a case because they believed in you, they restored their mouth because of you, is that mouth going to be healthier, look better? Everything because the perio was maintained at the proper and the highest level. Have a great week. We're coming to the stretch end. Keep emailing me. I love hearing from you. See you next week on the Lionhearted.